Welcome back. We've had I had started off the chapter, the last lesson. पिछले class में I had summarized the chapter as well as we had done one portion. हमने इसका कुछ portion किया था. For the first few classes, I'll be bit slow. The reason is कि you must understand while in class 12 आपका जो एक word है, means I cannot say a single phrase. Even a single word might be having a question. You might get a question out of even a single word. So you need to understand कि while you are learning, अभी तो ये मेरी बारी है कि I am doing it with you. But when your turn comes, then you all must be understanding each and every line. Because the questions are not going to be direct, they might be indirect, they might be given with a phrase आपसे पूछा जाए इसको समझाने के लिए. To start off, हम लोगों ने chapter start किया था. A quick recap that the chapter is about a boy called Franz. And the boy who was a small, मतलब वो छोटा सा बच्चा था, he was not at all interested in studying. उसको पढ़ने में इतनी इच्छा नहीं थी. And the reason was he उसको एक तो समझ नहीं आता था. Secondly, he was more interested in the birds, in the Prussian soldiers and all other. And that particular day, जब ये chapter लिखा गया है, that particular day he was in a hurry because वो already late हो गया था और उसके teacher ने आज participles पे question पूछना था, which he had not learnt. While he was moving, उसने कई strange चीजें देखी. Like bulletin board के पास भीड़ थी. Then school में काफी silence था. School में जो teacher था, he was wearing a unique dress, and all the people from the village were also sitting in this classroom. अब उसको ये सब बातें समझ नहीं आई कि why all these things are happening. He was only scared कि उसका जो teacher है, जिसका उसके according was a very strict teacher. He must, मतलब कि he must have been, he must scold him. लेकिन ऐसा कुछ नहीं हुआ. There was nothing like that. उसके टीचर ने उसको स्कोल्ड नहीं किया. In fact, he took the blame on himself. टीचर ने blame अपने ऊपर and अपने parents पर दिया. I had given this, ये यहाँ पर साइड में मैंने questions लिखे हैं कि what were the reasons that he gave, and the reasons were कि उसके जो, if the parents are not serious about a student's study, वो regular जा रहा नहीं जा रहा है. It's not like studying, it is also discipline, regularity, sincerity. आप कभी भी स्कूल जाने के बाद भी 365 days if you go to the school you may not learn, but if you are regular, sincere towards your work, you would learn. And this is my principle also. ये मेरा भी principle है. And many times I get indulged in the, what you say, ugly fight with people कि भाई आप absent क्यों होते. It's not, it's a regularity. जिस चीज की हमें आदत होगी वो चीज हम जल्दी सीखते हैं. He gave this blame कि parents जो है they send their children to the farm for working, और वो खुद भी जो है he would be giving holidays. Thus, the main जो आपका theme है, the role of a teacher, वो यहाँ आता है. अब यहाँ पर जो है, from there we have to start. The next question which comes in your exam is, बहुत common आया हुआ है कि how did M. Hamel describe the French language? It's a short question which has come in the exam. Then from one thing to another, we have to start from here. Then from one thing to another, M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful and language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, and we must guard among us and never forget it. उसने फ्रेंच को सबसे खूबसूरत लैंग्वेज, उसने कहा इट्स द मोस्ट क्लियरेस्ट, मोस्ट लॉजिकल, मतलब उसके जो आपके ग्रामेटिकल स्ट्रक्चर्स हैं, दे आर बेस्ड ऑन लॉजिक, एंड दैट बीइंग अ फ्रेंच, वो लोग सब फ्रेंच थे, so they must not forget it, because this is one of the question which came in the paper, and I told you that there is a question related to this in your from the indigo से भी इसको relate किया जाता है. Once it came, because when a people are enslaved, यहाँ पर if you see the word a people लिखा है, normally people refers to a group. This is for the country. This is a synodic. यहाँ ऊपर आपको मैंने बताया था ना कि this is a synecdoche, तो same thing is there. यहाँ पर जो a people है, it is referring to the entire country. It is synecdoche. When a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. It's one of the most important questions you can say from this particular concept. What does it mean? जब तक हम लोग hold fast का मतलब होता है respect their language. If they guard their language, मतलब अपनी language, वो language जो है, it is their identity. Language जो है, it is our identity. And we must not lose our identity. हमें अपनी identity को कभी भूलना नहीं चाहिए. Our language is our pride. As long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. ये क्वेश्चन आया था कि रेफरिंग टू दिस क्वेश्चन, मतलब इसको लेकर एक्सप्लेन हाउ गांधी जी जो है, ही हैड आल्सो टेकन द मेजर्स. तो अगर आप हमारे इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स को समझते हो, इफ यू हैव रेड समथिंग अबाउट गांधी जी, यू मस्ट हैव सीन कि गांधी जी ने जो है स्वदेश अपनाओ जो है, he had taken up the slogan. He emphasized कि वो इंडियन क्लोथ्स को पहनेंगे. These are the examples which you have to give. In the second round table conference, when he had to attend it at London, he was dressed in the traditional attire. उनसे पूछा गया था कि why you are there in the traditional attire, and he said it is our identity. Many leaders like Atal Bihari Vajpayee, they have given their speech in Hindi at UN Assembly. We must never forget that what language or to which area we belong. और यही बात M. Hamel ने भी समझाया था. M. Hamel is a name, not any initial. It is not Mr. Hamel. It is M. Hamel. That is a complete name. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. मतलब यहाँ पर M. Hamel explained how they should guard their language, why they should guard their language, उन्हें अपना language क्यों guard करना चाहिए. And then he opened in the initial name, we did not use Mr. We used the Monsieur. हम लोग बोलते थे Monsieur. So Monsieur Hamel. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. क्योंकि अभी तक तो उसको ऐसा ही लगता था कि the chapters were very difficult, participles was very difficult, he was not able to learn anything. लेकिन आज उसको लग रहा था he was able to understand everything. All he seemed so easy, so easy. I think that too I had never listened so carefully, and that he had never explained everything with such patience. मतलब why he felt the language suddenly so easy. उसको अचानक से ऐसा क्यों लगा? Because अभी तक उसने कभी नहीं इतने ध्यान से सुना था. Most of the time it is our temperament कि हम आधी बात सुनते हैं, आधी बात नहीं सुनते हैं. And also it is not one sided, it was both the side. टीचर भी उतने ही पेशेंस से समझा रहा था. He was not in a hurry to complete the syllabus. He was not in a hurry to, wind up the class. He was also taking complete interest in that area. So it is what it shows is education, teaching, learning is a two-way process. It's not a teacher who can claim that he or she is good, and it is not the children who can say that they are attentive. Both of the sides. A teacher needs to be perseverant. यानी कि बिना रुके, the person should take the effort. And on the other hand, the children should also pay attention, interest. It's a mutual trust. Education, learning can never be possible if you don't have the trust. I always tell this to all my students. To all my students, that if you are learning from someone, then be prepared, be trustful. किसी ने ऐसा कहा आपको वो टीचर अच्छा है तो डोंट ट्रस्ट, या किसी ने कहा वो टीचर बुरा है, इट्स अ म्यूचुअल. मेरा रिलेशन एक बच्चे के साथ जो होगा वो दूसरे के साथ नहीं हो सकता है. एंड आज तक का मेरा रिकॉर्ड है कि जितने मेरे पास बच्चे रहे हैं, दे ओनली हैव ट्रस्टेड ऑन मी and I also trust on them, and that's a mutual. We need to be patient as a teacher and the children need to be patient as a student. And उस दिन शायद उनके वहां पर उस क्लासरूम में the teacher was also taking the pain and the children were also taking the pain. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away and to put it into all our heads at one stroke. Put it into our brain at one stroke, matlab make them learn in one class. Into our heads, matlab एक ही बार में उनको learn करवाना चाहते थे. सब कुछ उनके ब्रेन के अंदर डाल देना चाहते थे. He wanted to transform the entire learning into their heads. After the grammar, beta, all into our heads at one stroke is a phrase. और phrasal questions भी पेपर में आते हैं. At one stroke मतलब immediately, in one go. After the grammar, we had the lessons in writing. That day, Hamel had new copies for us. Written in beautiful round hand, Franz says, Franz says. They look like flags floating everywhere in the classroom. It's an alliteration. Flags floating. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work. and how quiet it was. मतलब यहाँ पर he is giving, आप देखोगे exclamation is given. If you see the mark, exclamation is given. Why this exclamation is given? He wants to put this as an, मतलब वो आपको ये expression देना चाहता है, आपको देखना चाहिए था कैसे सब लोग काम कर रहे थे, कितनी आवाज, कितना शांत माहौल था. Why? Because earlier it used to happen, पहले क्या होता था, it used to happen that कि वो लोग जो है शोर मचाते थे, there was bustle, but right now it was quiet. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. मतलब कितनी शांत आवाज थी कि सिर्फ पेन की आवाज आ रही थी, तो आप सोच सकते हो कितना साइलेंस था. Once some beetles flew in, अंदर भवरे आए, लेकिन किसी ने उन पर अटेंशन नहीं दिया. नॉट इवन द लिटिलेस्ट वन, मतलब जो छोटे बच्चे थे वो भी नहीं देख रहे थे. Who worked right on tracing their fish hooks as if that was French too. मतलब उन बच्चों को जो है मीनिंग तो नहीं पता था, उनको ये नहीं पता था कि क्यों आज सर इतने शांत हैं, बट दे वर एंटिसिपेटिंग, दे वर अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि कुछ तो हुआ है. दे अंडरस्टूड दैट समथिंग ग्रेट हैज हैपेंड. तो जब भवरे आए, जब मतलब कि तो भी उन लोगों ने उठकर नहीं देखा. ऑन द रूफ द पिजन्स cooed very low. I thought, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? उस दिन आपको ये क्लास, मैंने had already discussed this question. It is there at the back also. What does it mean? And it has come in a, पहले ये 10 marker questions में आता था, फिर 8 marker, फिर 5 marker. In the long question it has come. This particular phrase. What does it mean? Will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? Means जो hatred, cold contempt, these can be forced only on humans. You cannot force them on animals. आप animals को जो है force नहीं कर सकते हो. For example, if you go to any house, जहां पे they have the animals in their home or pets in their home, do you think that the pet or the animal understands that language which they are speaking? No. Animals only understand the language of love. They understand your tone. It's not the language, it is the tone. And you cannot force any animal to follow a particular language. लेकिन एक टेरिटरी जब कॉलोनाइज होती है, when a territory is colonized, when a territory is overpowered, the one जिन्होंने उनको overpower किया है, they force the other people to follow that. Humans are in fact helpless. Animals are not. Animals are free. Animals उतने ही free हैं जितने वो हैं. You cannot force them to learn a language. You cannot force your territorial control on them. Whenever I have done this chapter, I always, share this story with my students. It's not a story, it is actually in the graduation में है हमारे. There was one, today I was teaching the partition के बारे में बता रहे थे. So there was one real incident which was mentioned in one of the portion of partition कि एक dog था. मतलब when India and Pakistan was partition, there was a dog. नाउ द डॉग वाज, तो उसका टेरिटरी था, तो इट वुड मूव फ्रॉम हियर एंड देयर, और जो खाना देता था वो खाना लेकर आता था. सो व्हेन इट वेंट इनटू द इंडियन टेरिटरी, तो इंडियंस ने कहा कि भाई ये हमारा है, तो दे जस्ट उसके तिलक विलक लगा दिया. एंड व्हेन इट वेंट टू पाकिस्तान, वहां उन्होंने कहा ये हमारा है. एंड देन व्हेन इट केम बैक, तो इनको लगा द पाकिस्तानीज आर सेंट, उनको लगा इंडियंस आर सेंट, एंड अल्टीमेटली they shot dead it, because animals don't have a territory of nation. They have their own territory in which they live. They don't force each other to follow the rituals, the language. We call Sangpo river as Brahmaputra in our country, and I think Jamuna in Bangladesh. पानी तो सेम है भाई, पानी तो सेम है. We call Indus with different names in our country, and it is called as another name in other country, but पानी तो सेम है. Then can you force the water to change its course? No. Any territory when it is controlled by other group, it tries to suppress the groups living over there. It is not possible on animals. ये वाला जो क्वेश्चन था, ये उस दिन आपको मैंने मार्क भी करवाया था in this one, ये वाला, this one. What could this mean? This is the question. Means humans can only power humans. They cannot force the animals to follow their instructions. Yeah, animals over the period they get trained, but they don't follow that instruction. उनका ये नहीं कि वो अगर मतलब कि अगर if a dog is barking, it is barking in this language. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamel. ये वाला आपकी फोटो भी बनी हुई है in some of this. I saw Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing and then at another thing, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. Fix in his mind matlab capture. Fix in his mind matlab capture. मतलब ऐसा लगा, पहले वो इधर देखता उधर देखता, मीन्स ही वांटेड, ऐसा लग रहा था कि वो अपने दिमाग में ये तस्वीर लेकर जाना चाहता था. ही वांटेड टू कैप्चर दिस पिक्चर ऑफ द क्लासरूम विद हिम. फैंसी, फैंसी हियर अगेन इज नॉट व्हाट यू कॉल एज, कोई अच्छी चीज के लिए नहीं है. यहां पर इट इज द एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ sorrow. It is the expression of sorrow. ये दुख का expression है. For 40 years, he had been there in the same place, with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him. 40 साल से वो स्कूल के अंदर पढ़ा रहा था. 40 साल से वो यहीं पर था. ये जो स्कूल था, that was not his school. That was his home. वो उसका घर भी था. That was his garden which he had मतलब उसने जो है उस गार्डन को सो किया था, रीप किया था. उसके लिए कितना दुख होगा सोचो. Just like that. Only the desk and benches had been worn smooth. सिर्फ आपके जो बेंचेस थे वो सब आपके जो है worn smooth, मतलब they had gone old. They had gone old. बाकी कुछ नहीं बदला था. The walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hopvine he had planted himself twined about the window to the roof. In fact, जो उसके वॉलनट के ट्रीज थे जो पहले छोटे थे अब वो बड़े हो गए थे, और जो उसने वाइन यार्ड लगा रखा था वो अब उसने जो खुद लगाया था वो ट्वाइन होकर धीरे धीरे बेल बनकर विंडो से रूफ तक जा चुकी थी, मतलब उसने इतना उसको अपने घर जैसा डेवलप किया था. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all. Poor man. His sister moving about in the above room, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next day. वो तो वहां पर posted था ना. Now children ask me कि ma'am why he was supposed to leave that country. That is because उस जगह को उसे छोड़ना था, as he had been designated by the government. वहां पर गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से वो पढ़ा रहा था. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. लेकिन इतने होने के बावजूद वो हर बच्चे से सुन रहा था, वो पूरी हिम्मत कर रहा था. आफ्टर द, यहाँ पर जो करेज है, दिस इज नॉट फॉर द ब्रेवरी. यहाँ जो करेज यूज हुआ है, इट इज यूज फॉर द पेशेंस. क्योंकि as you know, you might get a question, ऊपर जिस कंटेक्स्ट में यूज किया है उसी कंटेक्स्ट में आप बताओ. Here the courage has been used for the patience. After the writing, we had a lesson in history. Then the baby stunted ba, baby, bobu. This is the what you call as vowels. हम लोग A, E, I, O, U बोलते हैं ना. That is in the French. Down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding the primer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. जो बूढ़ा हॉजर था, जो अपने साथ एक बुक लेकर आया था, प्राइमर, एज आई हैड ऑलरेडी टोल्ड द प्राइमरी, वो जो है उन बुक्स के साथ पढ़ने की कोशिश कर रहा था. You could see that he too was crying. His emotion, his voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. मतलब वो बेचारा रोते रोते हंस रहा था, हंसते हंसते रो रहा था. And this is how he was showing his expression. He was exhibiting his expression. हंसी आ रही थी. At the same time, they were feeling crying because now this classroom, Hamel or French would not be there. Ah, how well I remember it, that last lesson. A very important phrase. How well I remember, matlab, I can remember एक छोटी छोटी. Even the minute things were recorded in his heart. Even the minute things were recorded in his mind. मतलब छोटी सी छोटी चीजें जो है उसके दिल और दिमाग में छा गया था. All at once the church clock struck 12. That was a time when the classroom was over, and also that ki unka jo matlab ki they had to shift over. Then the angelus, आवाज आई. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians, returning from drill, sounded under our windows. M. Hamel stood up, very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. What does it mean? यहाँ जो tall है, it is not for the height. यहाँ जो tall use हुआ है, वो आपके height के लिए use नहीं हुआ है. It has been used for his greatness. I never saw him look so tall. मतलब he had never seen him in such respectable way. मतलब there was a sudden transition. ये रहा जो ये question है, ये वाला क्वेश्चन है. How did Franz feeling about M. Hamel change? क्योंकि अभी तक उसको लगता था हेमल was a strict, disciplined person. He was a stern man who used to beat them, who used to scold them. उसने कभी भी हेमल के उस पर्सपेक्टिव से, एज अ टीचर वाले पर्सपेक्टिव से उसने कभी भी उसको नहीं देखा था. बट टुडे व्हेन एम हेमल वाज ट्राइंग टू हाइड हिज इमोशंस, व्हेन एम हेमल वाज ट्राइंग टू give away the knowledge, when it was announced that French would not be their language, उस दिन उसको एम हेमल की उस महानता का, उस ग्रेटनेस का अंदाजा हुआ. ये पेपर में आया हुआ क्वेश्चन है, ट्वाइस और थ्राइस. दैट व्हाट डज इट मीन? इट मीन्स ही वाज नेवर टॉल, मतलब लंबा नहीं, महान. He now had that change of feeling. He was not a strict disciplinarian, but he was a strict but yet a teacher who loved his language. My friends, I वो कुछ कहना चाहता था, but something choked him. He could not go on. He couldn't speak up. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing all with all his might. Might matlab all his courage. अपनी पूरी हिम्मत लगाकर, मतलब ना तो वो बोल पा रहा था ना वो लिख पा रहा था. He was so emotional. He was so emotional that neither he was able to write, but उसने पूरा अपनी पूरी हिम्मत लगाई and जितना बड़ा हो सकता है उसने लिखा विवे ला फ्रांस. एंड दिस क्वेश्चन अगर आप 10 से लेके 14 तक का बैच का देखोगे तो दिस वाज वन ऑफ द रिपीटेड क्वेश्चन. व्हाट डिड ही राइट एंड व्हाई डिड ही राइट? व्हाट डज इट मीन? What did he write on the blackboard and why did he write? One of the most repeated question, and you have to answer with मतलब कि at the end, जैसे ही मतलब आपको यहाँ से start करना है कि as the clock struck 12 and when it was the time to end up the class, M. Hamel stood up. He wanted to say something, but he was not able to. Therefore, he took a chalk and wrote on the blackboard, Vive la France. आपको ये पूरा आंसर ऐसे लिखना है. And then what is Vive la France? Means France should be remembered forever. Long live France. इसका मतलब है long live France. This is the answer. Then he stopped and leaned head against the wall. उसके बाद वो खड़ा हुआ, अपना सर उसने जो है वॉल की तरफ रखा. And without a word he made a gesture to us with his hand. School is dismissed, you may go. और उसने मुंह से कुछ नहीं बोला. He just made a gesture. उसने जो है एक इशारा किया. That school is dismissed, you may go. And this shows how emotional he was at that time. How he must have felt bad. So this is the chapter, what you call as the last lesson. I'll be sharing some of the important questions which I have already written here also. जैसे आपका जो पहला वाला जो ये वाला है, इसमें से मैक्सिमम यही क्वेश्चन आया है. दैट इज आपका why was he scared to go to the school, या why was Franz late for the school. ये एक मतलब की है. what was Franz supposed to learn for the school, ये वाला है आपका. then आपके सेकंड वाले में जो ये वाला क्वेश्चन था, दिस मतलब ये वाला जो एक्सप्रेशन था, डोंट गो सो फास्ट, ये जो सरकास्टिक आयरॉनिकल था, विच वाज सेड बाय वन ऑफ द ब्लैकस्मिथ. What does it mean? It was a sarcastic comment कि भाई अभी जल्दी क्या है, आराम से चले जाओ. Means he wanted to convey कि अब तो कोई स्कूल है ही नहीं. Then third important question which has been repeated is what was the scene in the classroom, या फिर what was something different. So normally in the school आवाजें आती थी, children reciting their lessons, teacher के बोलने की, rapping of the मतलब की scale. That particular day it looked as if it was a Sunday. There was complete silence. Then what was unique about the dress that M. Hamel wore? This is the next question. It was this, मतलब कि normally he wore that dress only on the special occasions, on the prize day celebrations, and he was wearing that. Then next is aapka, this question has come in 3 different ways. What was the news put on the notice board? What order had come from Berlin? Yeah. What a thunderclap these words were to me. In तीनों का same answer है. That is, the order had come that the schools would be teaching German instead of French, because the area Alsace and Lorraine had been captured by Germany. और ये वाला question, what a thunderclap, same है. What a thunderclap मतलब he was extremely shocked, and the shock was that from the next day they were supposed to learn German instead of French. Then ये जो lines मैंने underline कर रखे हैं, these are all जिसमें आपसे पूछा जा सकता what were the, मतलब my history of the saints were old friends. Now I couldn't give up, and M. Hamel, तो ये जो था वो regret जो कर रहे थे. Then this expression कि why the old people from the village were sitting over there. So they all were sitting over there to pay their gratitude to their language and their teacher. Then ये वाला जो underline किया है, every day we have said to ourselves, "Bah, I have plenty of time, I'll learn it tomorrow." ये RTC में भी आया है और as a question भी आया है. What does it mean? It means normally we put the things on tomorrow. अरे अभी तो बहुत टाइम है, हो जाएगा. But sometimes वो जो time है, that time never comes. So we must not put the things for next day. We must do it immediately. Then the next is, we have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. मतलब हमें खुद को जो है, we must regret on our actions. And what is it? That they had been putting the things, they had been evading the learning for next days. यहाँ से तो मैंने आज आपको बताया ही था what reasons he gave for the children not taking interest. Then how did M. Hamel describe the language? Then when people are enslaved वाला जो ये है, why? Then what is this? Will they make them sing in German वाला? Then the मतलब कि this one, I never saw him so tall. What does this expression mean? Why, what he wrote on the boat, and what does it mean? That is Vive la France, yani ki long live France. So these are some of the most important questions. Besides the theme, I had already discussed the theme at length in the last class. One is आपका the pain that is inflicted on the people of a territory by its conquerors by taking the right to study or speaking their own language. और ये वाला जो क्वेश्चन है, ये लिखा हुआ आएगा, and it may be आपसे इसमें examples भी पूछा जा सकता है. Cite some examples from Indian context पूछा जा सकता है. So when we were in मतलब कि when British had colonized us, we also faced such challenges. हमारे भी थे. India was considered as one of the backward one. Today, no doubt, an Indian is ruling the same British territory. But Indians were considered to be backward. We were not given the right to study. Many of our curriculum was changed. We were मतलब कि mocked for speaking in our language. In this lesson also, जब जर्मनी ने उनको कॉन्कर किया, तो उनका जो लैंग्वेज था, दैट इज फ्रेंच, उसको उनसे छीन लिया गया. इट वॉज स्नैच्ड. एंड लैंग्वेज को स्नैच करना, सी इफ यू आर स्पीकिंग एनी लैंग्वेज आउट ऑफ योर विल, दैट इज समथिंग डिफरेंट. But if you are forced to speak language because it is important, then it becomes difficult. No doubt, आज भी अगर आप फ्रांस में जाते हो, it is very important that you know few French terms. Otherwise, you will not be able to survive there, even for 2 days. But then they respect everyone. But जबरदस्ती किसी को ये लैंग्वेज बोलना, this has been there in Indian context also. पेपर में आया हुआ क्वेश्चन है, like in many of our Indian states, it happened. Then the second sub-theme is student and teacher attitudes to learning and teaching. अभी मैंने आपको ऊपर बताया था, ये वाला जो एरिया था, when he was, I had never listened so carefully, and it looked as if he had never explained everything with patience. ये वही आंसर है, ये वही आंसर है, इसी क्वेश्चन का ये आंसर है. That teaching is not one way. A teacher can never be called as a teacher unless and until he or she is not able to put that. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, Mrs. Sudha Murthy, इन लोगों का मैंने सुना है, those who have been their students, I have heard कि उनके क्लासरूम में एक अलग मजा होता था. That is why perhaps S. Radhakrishnan is said to be, उन्हीं के नाम पर हम टीचर्स डे सेलिब्रेट करते हैं. Even Dr. Abdul Kalam in his book, Wings of Fire, he has given so many examples about his teacher. उनके जो साइंस के टीचर थे, how he had motivated him to become a scientist. It was not like उन्होंने बोला था कि तुम साइंस ले लो, जाओ साइंस पढ़ लो. It was उनकी जो छोटी छोटी चीजें थी. If you go to, मतलब कि fortunately or मतलब कि fortunately I had just 1 month back I had gone to his home. Just February 23rd को मैं 20th को मैं वहां पर थी. एंड वहां के उनके घर के अंदर जो उनके, आई वेंट टू हिज होम, तो घर के अंदर वो छोटी छोटी चीजें, द फर्स्ट थिंग ही हैड मेड एज अ प्रोजेक्ट, मतलब everything what he has made, everything is stored over there. And in the book it is written that how the teacher had given him that platform. वो जो टीचर थे, उन्होंने वो प्लेटफॉर्म कैसे दिया था, वो टीचर ने उनको कैसे, मतलब कि उनको एनकरेज किया था to join. And that is perhaps the teacher's perseverance, his motivation, that he stood in that area. Otherwise, agar aap beta, if you really go to Rameshwaram, and if you really see that area, आपको लगेगा मैम यहाँ पे इस एरिया का इंसान इतना बड़ा साइंटिस्ट बन गया. How was it possible? Because in reality, you don't have a proper what you call as school over there. आपका जो सबसे नजदीक स्कूल है, which you call as, it is somewhere 50 kilometers from there, which we call as Ramanadapuram. And he had to study over there. उनको वहां जाना पड़ा था, रामनाथपुरम जाकर पढ़ना पड़ा था. And वहां मतलब कि he had to leave his school. This is his house. Right now इसको थोड़ा गवर्नमेंट ने चेंज किया है. In the first floor वो रहते थे, and second floor मतलब वहां पर जो है they have made the उनके ब्रदर वगैरह रहते हैं, ये उनके ब्रदर, उनकी बहन का बेटा. He resembles Dr. Kalam very much, but ये उनका, I took a special photograph. I asked him because I'm very fond of Dr. Abdul Kalam. If you see, अभी भी आप रामेश्वरम जाओगे, you will find you are in a primitive village. आप किसी विलेज में पहुंच गए हो जहां 8th स्टैंडर्ड के बाद टीचर नहीं है. वहां पर एक, अगर वहां पर कोई बीमार पड़ता है तो they have to go to the nearest रामनाथपुरम for further treatments. उसके बावजूद ऑल दोज ऑब्स्टिकल्स, अ टीचर, मतलब कि जो डॉक्टर कलाम थे वो आज इंडिया के ही नहीं वर्ल्ड के साइंटिस्ट बने. ही इज द वन हु हैड गिवन द पोखरान एपिसोड टू अस, एंड दिस इज बिकॉज उनके जो टीचर्स थे दे हैड गिवन दैट मोटिवेशन. एंड टीचिंग इज नॉट समथिंग जहां पर आपको ये पढ़ा दिया जाए, आपने कोई वीडियो देख ली. It's not that. It is when you are allowed to do something. When your perception, your things, आपको पढ़ने का इंटरेस्ट आना चाहिए. And from the student's point, a child is not a student because he is sitting in a class. आप student इसलिए नहीं हो कि आप क्लास में बैठे हो. You are a student because you are ready to absorb the things. अगर आपको लगता है कि आप बच्चे स्टूडेंट हो तो नहीं, I am also a student. A student is not the one who is taking up the book in his hand and reading something. A student is who is ready to absorb and learn the things. And that is why हम लोग कहते हैं learning is a lifelong process. हर बार हम कुछ learn करते हैं. Learning is not from book. Learning and teaching both are from heart. एंड जो अभी रिसेंटली एक क्वेश्चन इस चैप्टर से आया था और वो था रोल ऑफ टीचर इन अ स्टूडेंट्स लाइफ. उसमें डॉक्टर कलाम का ही आया था. एंड आई हैड दिस एग्जांपल विद यू, तो आई हैव शेयर्ड इट विद यू. बट इसमें डॉक्टर कलाम का ही आया था और उनका एक कोट दिया हुआ, कोटेशन दिया हुआ आया था. एंड इट वाज देयर की रोल ऑफ टीचर. यू मे फाइंड इट इन सम सैंपल पेपर और समथिंग लाइक दैट. तो वो मैं आपको ऑलरेडी एक्सप्लेन कर चुकी हूँ. A teacher is not the one who teaches with subject, with book. A teacher is one who teaches from heart. A teacher is one who molds the personality of a child. A teacher is not कि आप ये पढ़ो, आपका ये मिल गया, मेरा सब्जेक्ट खत्म हो गया. एक टीचर वो है जो उस बच्चे को ही बनाता है. What I am is the sum total of my teachers. What you will be would be the sum total of your teachers. तो आपको उसे एक्सप्लेन करना है. और इसमें जो क्वेश्चन आया था वो था राइट अ ब्लॉग. आपका जो क्वेश्चन था वो था राइट अ ब्लॉग. तो ऐसा क्वेश्चन हो सकता है राइट अ ब्लॉग, राइट अ पैराग्राफ, राइट अ लेटर टू योर फ्रेंड. दिस क्वेश्चन मे नॉट बी अ सिंपल एक्सप्लेनेशन. द क्वेश्चन मे बी ट्विस्टेड टू समथिंग, लेकिन आपको उसमें लिखना यही है. सिर्फ उसका जो फॉर्म तरीका होगा वो चेंज हो जाएगा. ब्लॉग है तो आपका ब्लॉग वाला फॉर्मेट होगा, लेटर होगा तो लेटर का फॉर्मेट जाएगा, बाकी कंटेंट हमारा सेम रहता है. तो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द चैप्टर द लास्ट लेसन. अ वेरी नाइस चैप्टर टू बिगिन विथ. आपका द लास्ट लेसन है, बट आगे आपको जो है इट विल हेल्प आउट.